Good morning, everyone. On vlog number 47, I am going to be trying to figure out the lower body and the legs. I need to have that completely worked out on the muscles, the origins, the insertions, all that figured out. That is my goal for today. I think it's doable. It should definitely be doable. By the way, I slept for like 10 and a half hours last night. How crazy is that? Probably something to do with the fact that I worked out like non-stop yesterday, and today I was just like, I woke up at 8:30. I thought I was going to get out of bed. I was like, woke up, I'm like, weird, I'm up early. Went and peed, and I'm just going to lay back down. I'm still kind of feeling a little tired, and then woke up like 2 hours after that. It was craziness. Craziness. I slept like a teenager. It's nuts. All right, let's get started for the day. Going to take a small hit of reefer here in order to get those creative juices flowing. There's a small one, though. I don't want to be on my ass. Alrighty, so if we look right here, this right here is your biceps femoris muscles in here, and then this right here is supposed to be your gluteus maximus right here. If you notice, these are coming between this large gap right here, and where there's just this little bit of support here. But the way we're doing it with the double parts out here, this gap, the space between the deep and superficial frame should be very strong. So what I think I'm going to do is reroute all these muscles that are just going around to over here, and they'll all be running through this cavity over here. Kind of like this right here. This is not as good of a drawing, but this would be the frontal and sagittal joints of the hip. And so in here you'd have these two poorly drawn muscles right here would be your biceps femoris, and they would come up like this, and they'd attach over here, so they'd internally rotate in the leg. They'd internally rotate the leg like this, or not rotate, excuse me. They would bring the leg in like this. Rotation is this motion right here. Anyway, they would pull your leg this way, and then this would be your iliopsoas. So these right here are your your gluteus maximus, and then this is your iliopsoas, and this right here. So this would rotate it out like this, but this would only be a slight motion. So these will actually probably be even closer to the center of rotation. So it's just a little bit of motion. The main function of these two is these ones come down the back and they pull your leg backwards. So like this, pull your leg backwards like this, and then while also pulling your leg inward like this. So it would also pull your leg inward like this slightly, but mostly what it would do is pulling your leg backwards, so it would be giving you that motion right there. And then this muscle would be doing the opposite of that motion. It would be coming over the top, so it would be pulling it, twisting it outwards, and coming over the top of the sagittal joint and pushing it forwards. And the main function of it would be pushing your leg forward. So the main function would be pushing it forward like this, but then it would also give it a little bit of an outward motion. So it was just that muscle firing, it would fire out like that. But then hopefully by turning on the back muscles, you can eliminate some of these motions if you need to, and just function on going forward. You could even pull them and go like this. That's the idea anyway, is that like you fire those ones in the back, they would pull it in, and then fire this one to take it forward. In theory, hopefully that'll work. The idea is to do as much motion with the fewest number of muscles as possible to keep things as simple as possible. And then in here, so then those tendons would come down through here, and they would also be attaching down here. So these tendons come all the way down here, and so they'll also be doing rotational motion of the leg as well. So what's weird about exoskeletons is to go through one human joint, you have to travel through 1, 2, 3 exo joints, because they're broken up into different planes. And a human, they're just one plane. I thought about making joints that were trying to be one plane for a while, but I couldn't quite figure it out, so I had to break it up like this. So in order for that one muscle to act on one joint, it needs to go through 3 joints. One human joint equals 3 exo joints. So it would also be attaching here, and so these two muscles, this one would actually just be bringing the leg forward, and then these two would also come down here, and they would do, one of them will internally rotate the leg, and one of them will externally rotate the leg, like that. So these will be where you get your internal and external rotation, and this will just be forward and lifting your leg out on the frontal plane like that. So it'll do that a little bit, and mostly pull your leg forward. And these two will do inward a little bit and mostly backwards, and then also depending, one of them will spin the leg one way and one will spin the leg the other way. So that'll give you this motion and this motion of your hip. And then down here, these, I know these are poorly drawn. There's also 2 more in here, and these are your biceps femoris in here. So these 2 right here come down, and they attach up here, and they'll do a little bit of backwards rotation, but you can see how they're on like a bar right there, and they're very close to the center rotation, so just a little bit of backwards rotation, not a lot. This is how your body works. So it's a double jointed thing, so it pulls it back just a little bit, and then mostly what it does is it bends your knee this way. So it bends your knee like this. So it pulls your hip back just slightly, and then it bends your knee, and that's how your biceps femoris actually work on your body. And then they'll also go down and they'll add rotation. One of them will rotate your leg this way, one of them will rotate your leg this way, so depending on which ones of those are firing is how you get that motion too. So that is what those will be doing. And then there'd be another muscle on the front here, and that would be your hamstrings. So your hamstring muscle, which is going to be one muscle, will be coming down the front here, but this will actually be coming down over here, and that'll come down and that'll extend the leg forward. It'll be anchored up here on the other side, so it'll very slightly move your hip forward, and then it'll straighten your knee, and then it won't be doing any internal rotation on the shank. So that'll be just for these 2 muscles, and this one will just be doing that. That's the theory right now anyway on how to do that. So attached up here, so a bi-joint muscle. These ones would seem like bi-joint muscles, but those are single joint muscles that happen to be going through 3 joints, exojoints, but as far as like putting on a human, it'd be a single joint that those would be going through. These ones will be acting on 2, because they'll be acting up here by lifting your leg slightly forward or slightly back, and then also coming all the way down here to act over the knee as well, and it act actually all the way down here through the knee. So those are a bi-joint muscles. Now the last ones I have to figure out are the gastrocnemius, which are going to come through here, and then down into the foot. You see, sometimes I think you just need to let things marinate. This is the draft 2 origins and insertions. That's all of them. So I finished the leg. And then here you'll see that's like the gastroc. So it would come down, it would split out to either side of the foot like this, so it'd be coming from up here down, and then it'd be attaching, the gastroc would attach here and here, and then this one is going to loop down and come in underneath here, and it's going to point your toes down too, like that. Ooh, except there might be one to do one that points your toes up. I didn't think about that, so I might need to do something for that, because if it's just pushing down, that might be a problem. I don't know. Maybe not. I don't know. It should probably be some kind of actuator to lift your foot up. Maybe there could also be a spring to reset it. I don't know. And then the other one, your tibialis would come down here and attach before the joint on that piece right there. So it would attach right there, and then that would lift your foot up. Okay, over here on my to-do list before I start the draft, this is my pre-build to do. This is for the draft 2. We have finished the origins and insertions, which leaves, and actually I finished pretty much the scan sketches. I have a pretty good idea how that's going to go there. I might do some more if I feel like I need to. That really just leaves this one right here, the building of the build spreadsheet, which is the order in which I'm going to build everything. And then over on that, I have these notes over here. So it's going to include the strut size, the cavity size, the bolt size, and it's going to have on each part whether or not I need to put in an origin or insertion or an anchor. So that'll all be on there too. So I'm going to take the sheet I made and I'm going to include it in this so that I know what I need to include on each one. And this should keep me much more focused and organized while I'm actually designing and pulling out on Fusion 360 the draft 2. Alright, so I have so this is the draft 2 build order. This is the final thing I have to do before actually building the damn thing. So here I have file, and after so that's the actual. This is the actual, right here is the actual Fusion 360 file. And then comes the part, so that's the body part essentially that I'm working on. And then lastly will be the components of that. So for example, like in the leg, we would have like the hip, the knee joint would be one of the body parts, and then the leg parts in between it, and then in the knee joint would be the parts of the knee joint, and then the parts of the struts that make up the actual part of the leg, stuff like that. So this may change, but this is giving me, so this is essentially the bird's eye view. So then these are the main parts, and then these are like notes on them. So I need to include these origins and insertions on that body part, there. And then this will be the strut size for those, and this will be the cavity size for those, and this will be the bolt size that I'm using for those. So stuff like that. So that's like notes to be referenced on these as I build them. And so now I just got to fill it all in, and this is the last piece to do before making the draft 2. All right, I actually might be taking a step back and adding one thing that I was just thinking of, and that would be, I added over here is the skin sketches. So like the armor or skin sketches. So how the actual like sheet metal, how I actually want that to go on, because it's going to move around in some interesting ways, and I think I want to have that a little bit more figured out before I actually start. So that's something I think I might add, so I might not be quite as close as I thought I was. Oh, and then another thing I realized I don't quite know how I want to do is how I want to actually hold on to. I have a pretty good idea how I'm going to do it on the superficial frame. I'm not really sure how I'm going to grab the deep frame because I can't magnet right onto it because of there's going to be composites all over it, and there's also going to be exomuscles and like electronics and stuff, so I won't be able to magnet onto those parts. So I have to figure out actually what kind of parts I'm going to hold this on with the stand and how I'm going to do that exactly. I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to do that yet either. So there's two things I guess I still need to figure out, so maybe I was a little bit rushed when I said we had it completely done. At least I got some of the stuff on the outline of the build spreadsheet though started, so we're getting there. Alright, I had another baby tiny hit. And now I'm going to go for a walk because that just sounds nice. So I got my bag packed up there. I'm going to bring some stuff to work and maybe go work at the park. That's what I'm thinking anyway. I'm going to bring it. I don't have to work if I don't want to work, but I'm going to bring it so I have it. I'm going to go for a walk. Alright, I'm at the park and there's some kind of something or another with all these tents going on. See them all? I don't know. The Denver Museum of History is right up there. Also, look how cute that dog is. Oh my gosh. The Denver Museum of Nature and Science is right over there. Alright, to start with, this is what I was thinking about on the way over. So this is how the limbs are going to be armored. This is probably the easiest to figure out. That's why I have it done first. So it's just going to be, so on the deep part, it'll just be coming down the side here. But then if you remember how we did the transverse joint of the shank, this is going to be similar, but the superficial part is going to come around. There's not going to be really jointed in the sense that it's not going to be attached, but they'll be kind of pressed up against each other, and so they'll be able to support in tension. And that'll just come and wrap around, and there's going to be two transverse planes now, remember, so there'll be two pieces there, and then this part of the knee will just connect, so this would be on the anterior side, and so these would just come up and touch like that. So that's the leg, and then the arm is going to be very similar. It's just going to be wrapping around, and by making it on the superficial part, it will not be on the deep part. It should hopefully not touch your body as it moves, as you rotate your limbs. I don't think it will. So, but because there'll be more space in between the superficial skeleton and then your body. And then here, this would be the posterior view, so this would be the back of your knee and the back on the inside of your elbow here, and this would be a compression garment, so compression armor. So this actually wouldn't be rigidly attached to itself. Instead, there'd be a flexible fabric like this, and then these would be rivets going through, and then these little pieces coming off are the actual like armor parts. And so those would be in those spots where you need more mobility. Alright, so I've also been working on some of the shoulder stuff, thinking about that. So this would be a side view, and this part, so this would be posterior, and this would be the joint, the main joint back there, and then this would be towards your chest. So as you lifted your arm up, this would come around like that. Keep that from happening, so this part would be attached more to the shoulder, or down the arm. This would be attached more down the arm. This part would be attached to the shoulder, so they'd move around each other, so they shouldn't limit motion that way. And then, sorry, these are kind of drawn on top of each other, but this would be the back, and then so if you lifted your arm up that way, it would compress in. So this would be just around that, and there'd be a spring resetting these, like that. Either a circular, like a clock spring in there, or a compression spring this way, a linear compression spring, doesn't matter. But you lift your arm up, and it'll compress that way. This would just be a part of the shoulder that would be attached to the girdle part that would come over like that. And then it would come extend into the front here like that, and then you have the same thing going on here. So both these pieces would both be able to compress around the frontal joint, around that joint right there, and there'd be another one just for the armor there. And then when you lift your arm up, they'll slide in. This is actually drawn wrong because these are going this way, so let me change that like that, so that would compress in as you lifted your arm up on both sides, and then they'd also be able to move around each other. Same kind of thing going on there, so lifting up. And then on the back here, would be on your back. I was thinking of this kind of mechanism here where you'd be able to slide this way and then be able to slide on another. So on one part you'd be able to slide one way, and the other part you'd be able to slide this way. So you have this plate coming over, and then you'd have a strap that kind of secured it down there. It's kind of what I'm thinking right now. And then on the chest, I was thinking to have like your main chest plate, and then you'd have a piece that just came out, and then it just had compression springs that just pushed it in and out as you slid your arm. I thought that'd be a pretty simple way to do that. So not sure. I mean, that's kind of like two solutions to the same problem. Just one is in the front, one's in the back. I'm not sure about this. This is just some ideas. I was just drawing, kind of thinking out loud. So got a little bit of that done. I'm gonna go back to the house because I'm fucking starving. I haven't eaten today. I'm gonna make a dope sandwich. I am not even joking when I'm gonna literally eat all of this, and some hummus with some of those chips. I'm so hungry. I did in fact eat it all. I'm very full, and I drank a beer, but 100% did it. So I'm definitely happy. I'm glad I decided to do the armor and the skin. Armor skin, I gotta figure out what to call that. If I'm gonna call it armor or skin, I don't know. But I'm definitely glad I'm working through that. I'm starting to figure it out, I think, pretty well on the arms. The extremities seem pretty good. Obviously the chest and the pelvis are easy, and the head is fully armored. What I haven't been able to figure out yet, I'm still been thinking about, is the lumbar and neck. Back to the hardest part. That's always the part that gets me, it seems like. That and the shoulder girdle. But see, I've always known the shoulder girdle was hard, so I spent a lot more time working on it. I haven't spent a lot of time doing neck stuff and lumbar stuff. So I like the way the shoulders are going together. I like the shoulder caps. I like what I showed you guys earlier. I think we'll do a simpler version of that. I need to run some sketches on it, but I think we'll do a simpler version of that on the around the hips. But the lumbar and the neck are going to be some kind of challenge to figure out. So I've already done 2 different sketches. I'm not super happy on either of them yet. So I got to figure those out. Then I'm going to go for a run right now, as long as I can with this mound of food in my stomach. I think I'll be all right. I got to do some more chewing and thinking on the lumbar and the neck. Back from my run, let me show you what I've been working on. So here, I was just playing with ideas on the torso. This, I'm starting to figure out something here, but it's not really quite ready yet. For the hip, I'm thinking a type of compression armor. This will be on the front side, the interior side. So if you lift your legs up, this will be compressed down. It'll be kind of overlapping on the pelvis and kind of come up on there. You just got to make sure that like you're not too low on this, that you can still bring your leg up. Or this needs to have its own level of compression too. That might not be a bad idea. Have a level of compression in here too, like that. Something like that. That's not a bad idea. Maybe do something like that. And then maybe on the leg, I was thinking having a bigger plate on the butt, because your leg doesn't swing back nearly as far as it swings forward. So it might be something like that. Maybe some compression under there. Haven't figured it out. Just working on ideas, thinking things through. So maybe some spring compression on both sides. This is the butt again. Like, so this part would slide up as you slid your leg. So if you slid your leg back, there'd be a part that on the leg that slid down, and then on the butt that slid up. I don't know. Figuring it out. One thing I'm seeing here is these parts that would slide on the butt and then over the hip here. They could slide, and they could be a spring on the hinge joint of the sagittal plane of the hip. So it could be sliding on that part, and that would actually give almost perfect movement for that. And then you would just kind of forget about. And then it would move with this joint. It would come up with that, and then, like, you know, if you got a little bit of gapping in there, it would just be part of the thing. But that could slide on that joint. That seems to make sense to me. And then this could still be a similar type of compression. This could even slide on that joint, honestly. I don't know. I think that is some of it. I'm not sure exactly how it's going to work, but something like that where it slides on those joints, and then it still would have springs to push it back up and open and wide when it needs to be, and then just have the force of your body or something. You have the suit moving, close it, something like that. The issue, of course, with doing this kind of stuff, this kind of compressive stuff that I've been showing up in here and here, is that this has to be maintained pretty thin, which wouldn't be a problem for the Mark 1, where I'm just using sheet metal to do it. I mean, making these compound curves is not going to be easy, and I'm literally have no idea how I'm going to do that. But despite that, if it's going to be made bulletproof at some point, I either have to really improve bulletproof technology and make that shit a lot thinner, or I'm gonna have to make it a lot thicker, and it's gonna be a lot more bulky. So, by the way, this would get rid of like the pauldron design that I had worked on before. Just took a shower and I'm feeling quite refreshed. Here we have some superficial shoe armor. Remember how I said that the peripherals weren't going to have extra armor on top of them? Not sure that's true anymore, at least with the foot, because I thought of that. I'm going to work on the hand too, but I haven't done that. So I'm imagining some compression armor, and they'll probably be rotating around the same axis as this joint would be rotating. So to remind you real quick, this is how the shoe looks. So I'm talking about a piece that's like gets compressed in here like this, that moves around that same joint right there. So moves around here, around that joint, and then same thing on the outside there. And then there'll be some garment compression coming through here and coming up into the shin like that. And this is something new I just figured out that I like, is that all the garment compression, which is garment compression, if you don't know, is like you have a piece of fabric and then you take a piece of metal and you rivet it to the fabric, and then on top of that you rivet another piece, and then you put another piece on top of that that covers those rivets, and you rivet those in, put a piece of that on top of that that covers those rivets, and you rivet those in, so you don't see the rivets, but they're riveted to fabric and not to metal, so it's a soft joint, not a hard joint. This right here is compression armor on the back underneath the butt. This actually is kind of similar looking to what I'm trying to do. They usually didn't armor the butt, but like something like this is probably what you're used to seeing. They actually didn't do this a whole lot because I think it made it hard for you to bend your arm. That actually doesn't look like proper compression armor though, because it's actually riveted to metal, which is not how they actually made it. There would be like another example right there. That one looks like it's actually done to fabric, most likely. This is probably kind of what you're used to seeing right here. So something like that is what I'm talking about when I say compression. I'm calling it compression garment because it's going to be attached with fabric. And then I'm going to have another type of compression garment that's going to compress with a spring. So keep an eye out for that as I talk. I'll be talking about one that uses a spring like this. And so this would get pushed up into some area, and this will be pushed down with a spring, versus this it's on when I say compression garment, I mean it's on a piece of fabric instead of a solid piece that's like fitting in mechanically like that. They're both going to, this is going to be pushed down with a spring, and this is going to be, which I just thought of, is going to be pulled up with a spring. So like as you pointed your toes, this would get pulled down and it would protect you, and then it get pulled back up like that. So it'd slide in and out like that. That's the idea. Hey, one thing I've been thinking about that I wanted to share is this thing. Remember the finger I made? I made an exo finger. Remember that episode? One thing that worries me is about the frictional spot where these are actually rubbing together. So essentially the actual joint. So I'm worried about it wearing in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to print a circle with a hole cut out and a slightly bigger circle with a hole cut out, and they're going to fit on top of each other, and they're going to glue in. And so the outer side of the big one will glue to this piece and be a permanent part of this piece, and the inner part of the small one will glue to this piece and it'll come there, but then those two parts that are actually rubbing against each other will be made out of steel and not out of plastic, and then they'll be reinforced, and actually parts of the Kevlar will come in and touch, kind of overlap the steel, so just the frictional parts are in metal, and then the rest of it will be composite. That's actually how I really want to do most of the suit, which is kind of how I'm going to do most of the suit, but that'll be a good way to do that. I just thought of that. It's a good way, and then it'll only be one layer thick of that material. And I'm actually thinking about doing the exoskeleton entirely in an even thinner metal than 3/16. I'm thinking about doing it in 1/8 just to give me more accuracy and precision and minuteness. Make it a little harder to weld. Definitely going to want to use a TIG. That's the plan from the beginning anyway. So. How are you? How are you? Are you awesome? Are you awesome? Alright guys, that's it. That's it for 47. I still have to figure out some armor on the hand. I'm working on some stuff for the lumbar and the neck. I'm going to let that, like I said, marinate a little bit more. Kind of nibble on it a little bit more. I'm getting close though. I have some pretty good ideas for the lumbar. I think they're going to work. I just need to draw them out, and I'm kind of still processing them just a little bit. I want to get those just right. But we're getting close. And then after that, if we look right over here, the skin, the armor, I have to figure out how I'm going to hold on to the deep frame, and then I'm going to figure out that build sheet and then it's on to actual like work. I have to design the build sheet, and then I have to build it, you know. So that is when I get those done, when I get the ideation done, that's when I'm going to switch and do that's when I'm going to set a due date for this stuff, and actually that'll be like work and get it done. Actually, I remember if you've been watching this channel, I've been saying I'm going to set a due date, but waiting to set the due date until I kind of know what I'm doing. But then I'm going to set the due date. So we're getting really close to me setting that due date and actually starting building the draft 2, and then after that, hopefully we'll have things pretty well ironed out, figured out, and then things pretty well figured out, and then it'll just be one more draft, and that'll be done. So I'm sure there's going to be a few problems and like a few things that I want to change, and then I'll write those down. And that should hopefully be less work than going from draft 1 to draft 2 will hopefully be harder than going from draft 2 to draft 3. So we should be getting pretty close to building it. Tim texted me today. He is subscriber number 19. So if he's seeing this, welcome, Tim. You guys know who Tim is if you've been following the channel for a while. He's getting antsy to weld. I'm getting antsy to weld. I want to build this thing soon. So I love you guys. If you're watching this for the first time, subscribe to my channel, damn it. I love you. Bye.